And by the way, I learned long ago, by the way, Steve Jobs learned this fucking thing from Motorola, and I learned long ago how to do a brand by just copying, like branding a couple freaking letters. That's where he got the freaking eye, right? He got the freaking eye. Okay, so I did a brand. Well, so he did a freaking little eye, and I like the little eye, but I have a sort of a brand. I pound, and that's your fucked up reality. And I star everything else. And by the way, when you read my writing in my, what I call my Bible, it's in my language, the King's English, and everything sees I stars and I pounds. Very few I pounds. I don't like to talk about that kind of stuff. But it's like, and then it breaks apart the language, and it tells you something like, well, okay, like for example, okay, I would say I have a rad-IO active mind. And when you start breaking that apart and look at our thing, is rad-IO, input-output, act, IV, E, enterprise. Anyway, you could actually take the codes, like tell you about ENT as enterprise. Mm-hmm. Every ING you see, switch the I into an E, and now you have ENG engineering. Okay, ER is healthcare. Okay, and so you start breaking these things apart, and you see, well, IT, information technology, and you break apart the English language, which I have done over the last 10 years, and you read and write inside a word. A good word. And so like this movie here, this is the weird paradigm of my paradigm right now. No, this movie here, we've been taking a movie back to it. Okay, so it's going to be way too long, because I just jam it in, fold them in my folders. If they're short enough for Facebook, jam it up Facebook's ass. But I have so much content, okay, that it's like there could be other movies that if I had a team, which I'm not even really caring about, because it's a matter of time and it's a matter of space, because when you have the right plan, and you're so far. I asked them in the beginning in 2005, the first time they called me bipolar. Okay, I've got them totally surrounded now. The first time actually after by California, they said stop drinking. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I said, okay, well that makes it. Let me make you a drink.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, and they said stop drinking, and so, and then I went for a second opinion. Like a few days later saying, well, if I'm going to create this big giant company, I better get another opinion. I go to this lady, darling lady, and she says, I say to her, I'm going to spend $250,000 of my spare change, and I'm going to make $100 million faster than Google. And she just gives me a bag of reciprocity. But anyway, then I go, and I go back to her, and she gives me another bag, and I give up. And then about July, I decide I'm gonna, like, my other partners are getting slow because I already figured out, we had a plan, a little business plan to take over the world. We were gonna basically, there was only 2 chips and access points back then. Mm-hmm. We were gonna write software on them that basically took over the access points and created an internet on top of all of the Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. And then basically create a Wi-Fi free network. But the free network would also, that's why I invented what I called at the time internet capitalism. Mm-hmm. But when you put your Wi-Fi up and somebody used it, you got a cutoff. And so it's like a pyramid scheme where everybody gets money putting out Wi-Fi and fuck AT&T, right? And so anyway, but then it was secure. That's where we were moving the internet. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have to worry about security things, because we would security at a different level. Anyway. But then they were going slow, so then I wrote my idea of Bill Starr's the next big things, and then I started going crazy, and then they put me in a mental institute, and so I asked the shrink, I said, what would it be worth to prove the existence of God? Now shrinks are taught, they nod. Okay, so he nodded. I asked, they were very simple, and then I said, what if I was playing 40 moves in advance in the world, based on insider information of unworldly proportions? And he nods. He said, what if I had 999 years of justice and peace and earth? He nods. And then he says, you're bipolar, you're grandiose, and you have racing thoughts. And I say, well, I never get depressed. And he said, well, you don't have to get depressed to be bipolar. And then he said, okay, here's the deal. I can keep you for 14 days, involuntary, or if you volunteer for another 3 days, we can do that. And I said, okay. And then the last time I saw that one, I asked him, Andrew Elliott, I asked him, what would we do if we owned our world together? He said to me, I think you're borderline psychotic. At that point, I thought, I think I have the world surrounded, at least in the shrink standpoint. And that was what I was doing, really. I've been on a mission from the inside out, right? It's like a private investigation. Like when I, theoretically bought the world, I mean, it would have been nice for them to come out and say, here's the world in a hand, a silver platter, here's your world, whatever. And by the way, when I bought the world, I didn't buy the world. The freaking world owned me. It was like a burden. It's like, wait a minute. At first I was running around like crazy. Do they know it's this simple? I mean, it was like, and then the burden lifted after time because, well, I've at least planted enough evidence where if it had to wait for 100 years before somebody found out that there was a guy that had the plan before we blew ourselves up, but that was actually the thing I calculated, is if you calculate your death, then you start changing your values, right? Like what happens, because I was blowing up the world for 2 years before I tried to reinvent it. I was trying to play Osama bin Laden and Jack Ryan, Jack 24 guy. And it was like, okay, wait a minute. I actually overblew it because in the beginning of my movie, I had 19 cities nuked and everybody was living in Kansas. But that was September 11, 2011. The next one was Bible Code Revelations. But in a series, because I wanted to create a franchise. But just anyway, that one, the thing is, once my character in the beginning scene was going into New York City and it already been nuked, and there was possibility of the next wave of nukes, and you have the cities nuked, that was way overboard. All you need is to play this Dr. Evil. Mm-hmm. One nuke, one city. I got, call it anywhere on 5, 3, 4. It doesn't take many more. Say I have 5 total nukes. Mm-hmm. One nuke, one city, 4 more. Some city's gonna come at some time, maybe. Now, what happens when you go in for your mortgage? What's the banker gonna say to you when you go into mortgage in Chicago? I mean, obviously they're gonna do a risk analysis of where the cities are that are gonna get nuked. And the big cities are like higher risk, right? And but it's like so. And then what happens is all of a sudden they say, well, we really aren't ready. Our insurance company won't insure, so you can't get a mortgage. And right, because Warren's not going to insure any shit that's going to get blown up, right? Actually, he's covered because he has wartime terrorist clauses out, but still, it's going to blow them up. Basically, it blows up the financial system because what happens is immediately the values of all the city properties, which is where the value is, crashes the banks, and then that crashes the Federal Reserve. It's like wham, bam, thank you, bam, one city, we're gone. It's really, really simple. The threat of real threat. We're gone, the whole economy. And by the way, it's not just the United States. It's every freaking country on earth. The asymmetric threat of terror. I used to, just as a fun part of this story, ask, what do we do when our kids have nukes in our lunch pails? What do we tell the kids to do when they have nukes in their lunch pails? Because technology proliferates. Anyway, that gets crazy. And so, but sometimes in my show, I get crazy. I gotta find my lights. I think I had one here.
What time is it too? I gotta get going soon.
I don't know. I can plug on my thing, but it's nice to see you.
Me too. So is all this on your
on my website? Just leave the people over. And actually, what I do, see, a while ago I used YouTube a lot. Okay, now I just use Facebook. And so I just Facebook my whole reality. So I'll have I got multiple cameras, multiple computers, and then I stream those, then stream the GoPro, and then just load it up.